Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, Realistic Bookkeeping. I'm Rachel Brown. Today's video is going to be all about week 6 of being a bookkeeper. So I've dropped my quotation marks because I totally feel like a bookkeeper now. I have met with my first client. We have gone through what his books are going to look like, and this week was all about me being on my own, working through his books in QuickBooks Online. So if you followed through, then you know where I'm at with my bookkeeping business. And this week was really the first week that I felt like I was doing bookkeeper tasks, and that was really exciting and really important that I got my first dip into the water of what that looks like. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I specifically did for my first client and this first week. And I'm going to start off by saying that in the interview with my client, I told them that I would work for 2 hours on their books and then give them an estimate of how many hours it was going to take to set up their business in QuickBooks Online and get everything ready to go so that we could move more into a monthly rate. You can watch a lot of YouTube videos or research a lot on blogs about whether bookkeepers do hourly rating or monthly rates. And I do think that it's really important to go to a monthly rate once you are established with a client. But in the beginning, I do feel kind of, at least for me and my business and the people that I'm serving, that I want to do an hourly rate, especially because I could end up doing a lot of work and incorporating a lot of time into their books at the very beginning. So those first 2 hours, I set a rate for. And in my area, I just wanted to make sure that I could serve clients in a rural setting that could afford to bring me on, because a lot of the times in a rural economy, you will find that people don't know the added value that a bookkeeper is going to bring to their business. And so it might be really hard to get them to accept that person into their business and that expense into their business expenses. So I wanted to make sure that my hourly rate was at a level that they would actually have me come on. And then once they saw the value that I added, going up to that monthly rate might be a little bit of a jump, but again, I wanted to be affordable. Now, there are a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of blogs out there that will tell you that you can make $60 an hour bookkeeping, and I do believe that that is a nice national average, but in my area, I felt like it was much lower to at least begin and start my bookkeeping business. But those are decisions that you can make for yourself. You're more than welcome to reach out to me personally, and I don't mind talking about what my rate was, but it's just gonna vary depending on who you're serving and what area you're in. So I did the 2 hours, and that's really what I did this week. I did 2.5 hours for my first client because I wanted to make sure that I also communicated with them about the work that I had accomplished before we moved on to more hours past that. And that might not sound like a lot, 2 hours working on someone's books, and it's not, because it will add up really quickly. But those first 2 hours are really important for you to delve into their business, actually get something done, and then be able to communicate that back to them. And so the first 2.5 hours this week, I basically looked at their linked bank account. So this client had not used QuickBooks before. He had just incorporated it into his business and gotten the program going. And so one of the first things that he did was he linked his bank account. And so my job in the first 2.5 hours, really what I focused on was going through all of the transactions in that bank, in that business banking account that he linked, and categorizing them. And so QuickBooks Online does a really great job of trying to automatically categorize things, but it's not going to set those categories in stone or add it to QuickBooks as an expense until you go through and manually do that as a bookkeeper or as an accountant. So what I did was I went through every single transaction line by line, made sure it was categorized correctly or changed the categorization, and then I added the vendor. So pulling it from the bank record, the bank description would be in there. So just as if you were to log into your personal bank account, it will tell you where you made that transaction. So maybe it was at Walmart or a gas station, etc. And so it's going to put something like that in the description, but that's not automatically going to be added as a vendor that that business is purchasing items from. So if my customer or if my client had a bank transaction for $23 from Walmart, then I need to understand how does that get categorized? Does that get categorized as job supplies? Does that get categorized as meals and entertainment? Does that get categorized as car and truck? And then I need to add Walmart as the vendor. And so I went line by line and did that. And that basically took me almost all of the 2.5 hours. I would say that took about an hour and 45 minutes. The rest of the time I spent changing his chart of accounts. So the chart of accounts is what produces a lot of really great records for the business, including the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet. And the chart of accounts are going to be the types of accounts or the types of transactions that that business is going to be tracking and producing. So you might want to change what type of expense categories you have. Maybe car and truck is not an expense category that your business is going to have expenses for. And so you can deactivate or delete that specific category in the chart of accounts. Or maybe you want to merge two that seem really similar, or maybe you want to add a subcategory to something. So my client would really like under job supplies for tools to be a category so that he knows how much money he's spending in tools. He's in construction and repair. So chart of accounts and going through and customizing that for his business was also something that I spent in that 2.5 hour time block. And the third thing was really me communicating with him. So communicating back and forth about any questions I had about transactions, how he wanted me to categorize things, amounts of certain expenses, and trying to make sure that everything was on track of where he would want it to be, where he would want that to be in his expenses. And at the end of the 2.5 hours, something that I did that was really special or a milestone was I made my first invoice. So of course, I am providing a service to him, and so I need to make an invoice and describe the work that I did briefly, the amount of time that I spent on it, and I need to send that invoice to my client. So I have things like my address in there and my email and my contact information. I have my logo on that invoice, and I sent that to him electronically. And then I actually followed up with him just to make sure that he received it and that he knew how he could pay me. And so I gave him a couple options for how he could do that. The other thing that was really important in that follow-up about the invoice was following up and saying, this is where I'd like to move forward with my work after this first original 2 hours, and look at an estimate of how many more hours it's going to take to do the rest of the work that he wants me to do as we set up this new client relationship between him, the business owner, and myself as his bookkeeper. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that it's given you some sort of a glance forward at what bookkeeping really looks like, and I will make sure to give you more content on all the things that I do as a bookkeeper and how I continue to grow my business and my brand. Thanks for checking in. Make sure to hit subscribe and look forward to my next video.